Canada is in a dire moment of our history. You need only take a walk down the street in front of Parliament to see how divided we are. So my message to my party is the same I will give to the Prime Minister and members of Parliament on all sides of the House of Commons. Audi alterum partem. Hear the other side. Listen to all voices, not just the echoes from your own tribe. Realize that our country is divided and people are worried. Work together, because how we as leaders act now will define the next generation.
After months of infighting and political chatter, it's official. Erin O'Toole is out as leader of the federal Conservatives. In a decisive revolt, the majority of caucus decided to replace him as the leader of that party in a secret ballot vote today.
118 votes were cast at today's virtual meeting. 73 MPs voted in favor of replacing Erin O'Toole, while 45 MPs voted to endorse his leadership. To discuss the latest developments and where the party goes from here, we welcome back to CB24 tonight political journalists Erica Ifill, columnist with the Hill Times, Marieke Walsh, political reporter at the Globe and Mail, and Scott White, editor-in-chief at The Conversation. Great to have all of you with us. Scott, let's begin with the numbers. Erin O'Toole lost 73 to 45. It wasn't even close. What does that tell you, and where did he go wrong?
Yeah, he did better with the Canadian electorate in the last election than he did with his own caucus. Where he went wrong is probably something that the other panelists who cover this on a daily basis can answer, maybe a little bit better than I can. But I'm struck by the fact that he's another one of these Canadian politicians who gave the best speech as his last speech. I was struck about how he talked about, the Conservative Party and the grand tradition about its ability to get rid of apartheid and having the first female prime minister and having the first black cabinet minister. And that's certainly not the party that he was representing in the last federal election.
So, Erica, was this about ideology, about what it means to be a conservative, or was this about Erin O'Toole's leadership?
Probably a little bit of everything. I think that any Conservative Party leader at this point has to navigate two factions of the Conservative Party, one that's more fiscally conservative, but maybe socially liberal, and the social conservatives. And it seems like the social conservative wing is just further and further away from the general public. And so to be able to navigate and balance those two really takes some finesse and some really good skills that Erin O'Toole, let's be honest, did not have.
Right. Marieke, we'll come to you next. The Conservatives have had 4 leaders since 2015. They will now be choosing their 5th. What does that say about the state of this party?
Yeah, I think it's 3 leaders since 2015, Ronna Ambrose, Andrew Scheer, and then Erin O'Toole, unless I'm mistaken. I think what is happening here is that it's actually more than 2 factions. The leader of the Conservative Party is dealing with libertarians, social conservatives, fiscal conservatives, people who are focused around natural resources, and then more sort of center-right Tories, the red Tories that we see in Ontario and Eastern Canada primarily. And so there's many factions. There's lots of overlap between some of those groups, but that's one challenge. And to Scott's point earlier, I think actually his speech tonight, Erin O'Toole's speech tonight, which he delivered to video with no questions for reporters, actually speaks to the challenge of his leadership. What he says does not meet what he does. So he's talking about listening, needing to expand your tribe. Well, he is targeted or accused by caucus members within his own party of not listening to them, of not consulting with them, and of not being credible because his ideas and his policy positions change from day to day or from week to week or from month to month. And so while his speech tonight might have sounded good, it didn't meet the actions of his leadership, which is why likely he actually was shown the door today. In terms of what's next, the question is, can the party actually unite? Because as you mentioned in your question, they've struggled to do that under several leaders now.
So, Scott, in terms of optics here, did Aaron O'Toole hurt his own party by not just stepping down when he knew this vote was coming?
I've been observing and covering politics for several decades, and there's always an ego that gets involved. So I think that's probably why he didn't do it. But you can understand, this is one of the latest of the official opposition parties that just seems to eat its own. Because remember, the Liberals went through a stage of this with Michael Ignatieff and Dion when they lost, and even the NDP got rid of Thomas Mulcair after the feeling was that he didn't do well. So it's a tough thing being the leader of an opposition these days. Long gone are the days when a leader was given several chances to try and convince the electorate that he or she could be the next prime minister.
Scott, I do have a technical question for you. I think a lot of people are wondering about this. So we know Aaron O'Toole is out. An interim leader will be selected soon. That decision could come as early as tonight. Talk to us about what happens next. Can the interim leader run to replace Aaron O'Toole?
My understanding is that that's not allowed under.
Yeah.
And Marieke, do you want to weigh in here?
Well, what's next is that there's a lot of procedural things that have to happen. The party will elect an interim leader likely tonight. They're in those talks now if they haven't yet voted. And then the National Council, which is the board that governs the party, has to strike a leadership committee. That leadership committee then has to decide how long they're going to have a leadership race, what the cost of entrance will be, all of these technical details, which are really important. They sound very procedural and kind of out of touch with the daily lives of Canadians, but it determines who will enter. How long the race is determines whether it has to be an established candidate who's going in with a quick race, or whether if it's a longer race, somebody who is not as well known has a chance at going into it. How expensive entering is will determine how many people enter that race. So these are really important decisions that help to inform the direction of the party. And then, of course, we need to find out who's actually going to put their name in. One name that's talked about a lot is Pierre Poilievre, who flirted with the idea very strongly in the last leadership race, at the last minute bowed out. He's one of the most talked about ones this time around.
Okay, there are some other names, including Patrick Brown, being thrown around. Erica, what are you hearing about who might replace Aaron O'Toole? Who are the front runners that you're hearing about today?
I'm hearing a lot of Poilievre, to be honest. Although I will just say I'm not sure that he would want to be interim if he can't be the leader itself. So I am not sure that that's really accurate. A few people have flirted with the idea.
Sorry, I wasn't talking about Poilievre for interim. I meant for permanent. I don't think he is in the running for interim.
Right. Go ahead, Erica.
Right, but I mean, again, anybody who, and that's a terrible rule, to be honest, that the interim can't run for leader, because I understand in terms of fairness and so on and so forth. I could see the argument for that, but at this point, how is the Conservative Party going to invest in the bridge building and the things that they have to do if they don't really believe the leader's going to be there for long?
Okay, we have to run, but I just have to ask this. I asked about this last night. You know, we heard from Doug Ford. He was asked the question, would you consider running? And he said, thanks, but no thanks. My hands are full. I'm more interested leading Ontario. Do we believe Doug Ford when he says he's not interested in running? Marieke?
For sure this time around, yes.
Okay. And Scott, how do you feel?
Yeah, I can't see it. He's got enough on his plate now and his own election coming up, and doesn't speak French. And I think that's become really essential in this day and age.
Erica, 10 seconds. What do you say?
I don't see exactly for that French reason. I just don't see it either. And to be fair, I don't know if Doug Ford could run, would want to run for a party that's so difficult right now.
Divided. Okay. Erica Ifill, Marieke Walsh, and Scott White, thank you all for your time and your analysis. We so appreciate this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.